usually at game conferences, I mean, esports is a very hot topic since a couple of years, and whenever I go to game development events like this, there are obviously sessions on esports, and it's usually the perspective of the developers of those specific games. And I wanted to do something a bit different for Dev.Play and present the perspective of the people who are involved in esports, but not the game developers themselves. And because I want these people to tell us, the development community, what esports as a medium, as a phenomenon, what does it need from game developers? So we'll start with a quick introduction of our panelists. Guys, please introduce yourselves in a couple of words.
I'll start. Hi, my name is Vlad Zotta, and I'm Business Development Manager for Neța Game, which is the distributor in Romania for Activision Blizzard.
Hello, my name is Sebastian Honciuc, and I am Marketing Manager for PGL Esports.
Hello, my name is Alexandru Ion. I own Nexus Gamers Pub. It's a bar dedicated to esports enthusiasts, and we also have like a gaming club and esports teams.
Hello. My name is Marius Radu. I'm Community Director at TSL for over 8 years.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. So let's start with a rather general question, but just to set the tone. Why are esports important today? So why are esports relevant in today's gaming world? And what are some recent achievements of esports? So whoever, it's addressed to all of you. So
I'll start, I think. First of all, esports is very important, in my opinion, as I'm an organizer of the company that I'm working with. It's an organizer of esports tournaments and events. I think probably esports is the most important marketing tool that a developer or a publisher can have right now. It can easily reach masses. It can be used in various ways to promote your game or product if you are speaking about non-endemic companies, so out of developers or out of IT industry. So I think right now probably for a game developer is probably the most important marketing tool that can exist right now. And as speaking of achievements, I think the most important achievement is that in the last years, or I would say since Twitch has been released, esports can reach a lot and a larger audience than ever. So we can even compare the events or the esports tournaments that are happening right now in terms of viewerships are close to very popular sports, real sports. So I think that's the biggest achievement for esports so far, that can reach masses, that can reach classic media, which is giving a more and more importance to the phenomenon right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I will add some stuff to that. We are all gamers here. We love games, and from a point on, we started watching other people play games and showing their skills. And as you said, with the help of online platforms such as Twitch, when they launched, and other platforms in the beginning as well, it helped a lot grow this kind of content and entertainment, this kind of entertainment to other people out there. Game developers should be interested in esports. Like you said, it can be used very well as a marketing tool for them to promote their game. And also another aspect that's very important, if we look at it at a different perspective or a different point of view, let's say, if we love watching people play sports and compete in sporting activities, these are intellectual, let's say, activities, or see people how they use their strategies and intellect within the game, depending on the game, of course, and matching that with a lot of, I don't know, communication and other strategies to actually win very big tournaments right now. Like you said, it attracts a lot of crowds, attracts a lot of people. There's a lot of interest in esports lately. If I remember correctly, Twitch announced that it has more than 100 million unique users right now. So that's a lot of people. It's a very big market, and it's growing even bigger, because if we're looking at the gaming market itself, there's somewhere around 1 billion gamers, so that's only around 10%, let's say, of the actual gamers. So it's only going up. In terms of achievements, we can say, for example, the recent example that we had is with the International, which raised around $20 million on its own, with the prize pool comparing itself to other sports like, I don't know, the Wimbledon tournament and other very well-known competitive sports right now. So there's a very big interest in esports. People enjoy this kind of entertainment, and I think it would help also, like you said, game developers, if they manage to create this kind of esport, this kind of game that becomes in time an esport, it will work a lot as a marketing tool for them.
Okay, so you both kind of touched on that, so about esports helping developers because it can be a marketing tool. Can you expand a little more on this? Maybe Vlad, from your experience, you can share something.
Yeah. So, for me, the whole esports phenomenon is half competition, half entertainment. So I think both views about esports are important. And from this point of view, it's important to, as a company, to emphasize both views, to go in both directions. So it's one thing to address your community, to develop your products for those who watch them and for those who compete, casually or professionally. So from this point of view, I think that it's important to look at esports as a tool for you to move forward with your community. I mean, it's okay. It's a good marketing tool, but it's very big, and you have to be very careful on how you approach it. It's not something very easy to do from the start.
Okay.
Okay, what I'd like to add, I think that the goal for any competitive game should be to become an esport, because once a game is a sport and it behaves similarly to a sport competition, then the game never dies. For example, I've been playing Counter-Strike 12 or 13 years ago. Now the game is still viable, and nothing hasn't really changed in terms of gameplay. Okay, the graphic has improved, spectator mode has improved, but the game still lives on because it's a sport. Okay, so from that point of view, and once a game becomes an esport, the community becomes relevant. Professional players from well-known teams become rock stars, okay, and the focus is taken away from the game and is driven towards the community more. So I think it's a different type of mechanic.
Okay, it's great that you mentioned that about a game becoming an esport. So how does that happen? What does a game need to become an esport? Because I've heard, for example, in other talks, things like game developers of games that eventually became esports, they were saying like, don't plan on becoming an esport, just focus on your gameplay, and if you end up becoming an esport, that's great. You're kind of saying the opposite. What, from your perspective, from your experience, from all the events you organize and so on, what does a game need? What makes a successful esport? What does a game need for that?
I think, first of all, it has to be simple to play and watch, but obviously hard to master. Like, there is obviously a connectivity between the game itself and the masses that can be reached. And I think that one of the most important thing for a game to be an esport is to have a huge fan base that can watch the game, that can basically keep up the community alive and so on. And the second aspect, in my opinion, will be the competitive mode, and the fact that indeed the game should offer some gameplay and some features that are really, you can really make a match and a competitive play out of it. That's why probably most of the games that are successful right now are team-based, 5-on-5, and has a very simple feature or gameplay. You need to kill the other player's base or to eliminate all the players. So the mechanics are simple, the idea behind is simple, but if you want to be a professional, you need to train more and to achieve different kind of levels and skills until you can really be a professional player and make the game an esports title. And obviously there are some other features that should be added to the game, like it should have a spectator mode, so it can be streamed, so we can add commentators, professional commentators, and all other features of a show to be broadcast on TV or Twitch. So I think those are the main features or the main things that an esports title should have. Obviously, there are more details, but in my opinion, those are the most important.
So if I try to sum up, it's about highly competitive play,
Yes.
and features that facilitate viewership.
Yes, mainly yes, but there are other features obviously, but I think these are the most important right now. The game should be simple to play and to watch. It should have those features that are making the game competitive, like the map should be done in a way, or the level should be done in a way, or the rules should be done in a way that can create competitivity out of it. And another factor, in my opinion, is the player base, which I think is essential for a game to be an successful esport title.
Okay, yeah, but that's something that comes in a while, so it's not something that the developer can. It's not totally in the developer's hands.
Correct, but on the other hand,
in my eyes, there's a mixture of stuff that the developer needs to do in order to, let's say, have a chance to become an esport, for his game to have a chance to become an esport. First of all, everybody's talking, if you look at the communities of the big esports titles out there, everybody's talking about balance. What is balance? Exactly, in a sense, inside a game, inside of each game, let's say, balance, it means a different thing. If we're talking about tweaking a hero or some items or some core gameplay mechanics or any other stuff. But they're talking about balance in what way? I mean, if you all the time you use the same strategy to win, and you win, I mean, you have a high percentage of win rate, let's say, with that sort of strategy, in most of the people's eyes, let's say, it's not a balanced game. Let's put it like that. So I think the main core focus for the developer at the beginning is to invest time in order to, let's say, to be close to the game, to watch what the community says about the game. Even if we're talking about a small community, every kind of feedback, it's very good at the beginning. So you need to listen a lot, to communicate a lot with your community and try to make that balance factor, let's say, so you have different types of strategies, because on esports, it's a competitive game. How do you win? If you're always winning with one type of strategy, that's going to be boring at some point. I mean, okay, you're one-trick pony, let's say. But if you have, I don't know, hundreds of types of strategies, if we're talking about a MOBA, for example, you can have different types of, I don't know, team compositions. Or if you're talking about a shooter, you can talk about the maps that can give you a balance. Let's say when you're trying to make a strategic, let's say, I don't know, if you want to reach a strategic point at some point, the map will help you a lot, but also the weapons that you have and you're using to reach your goal, let's say. So that's one thing. I mean, the developer needs to invest time in it, and also the game itself needs to be fun to play, let's say. I mean, that matters a lot, because the community, if the fun aspect disappears, let's say, there's only the, let's say, the competitive nature of it will remain. And I can give you an example with StarCraft 2, which, from my eyes, let's say, has dropped in viewership right now, because of the fun aspect and because of the developer hasn't invested that much in patches and stuff like that to bring up the game to be more fun to the casual user that plays the game and then likes to see, okay, if I wanted to take it to the next level, what do I need to do? So I need to watch those pro gamers or those top competitions, let's say, and learn from them how to make my play, let's say, much more, I don't know, let's say, professional, not necessarily professional, but I can win more with different types of strategies. And another thing that adds to the mixture is also the organizers, let's say, involvement inside the game. And maybe at the beginning, maybe the developer should have an approach to different types of organizers and propose their game to, okay, let's push it forward, even though it doesn't have a very big community. Let's make some tournaments for it. Maybe small tournaments at first, but if you try to do something for it and it draws an audience just by looking at it, like watching the game and it seems interesting, cool, okay, I want to check it out, it's a very beneficial factor for the game developer itself, because it will bring some sort of public from different other markets, let's say, or different types of games to your game, inside your game, just to try it out. And then we'll see exactly how it moves forward. And mostly the developer needs to pay a lot of time inside the game, inside the community, and see a lot of feedback so it can create, let's say, the perfect esport. Okay, so if I were to summarize your ideas, careful with the balance and keeping the game, I think, I'm not sure if the word we're looking for is fun, because that's the goal of absolutely every game out there, but varied enough in terms of strategies and ways to win, and to engage with the community. Okay, Vlad, you want to add?
I'd like to add something. I'd look at the values which are held in high regard in the traditional sport. So we have basically the same image. So we have leagues, associations, we have pro players, casual players, fans. So if you try to understand why each of them plays a certain, why they play a certain sport, what drives them, what they want to gain out of it. So you can get a lot of inspiration from looking at traditional sports, because you can measure very easily. You can see which are the most popular sports, the most watched sports in the world, and if you do a bit of research, you can see what's fun, what's not fun, what people want, how they want it, and you can you can get some results that you can apply into esports, and I think it works to do that.
Okay. You want to add something?
Yeah, I see sports mostly focused on entertainment. Like he mentioned StarCraft 2, that the game declined a lot. That's because the game is very mechanical. I mean, okay, you have 250, 300 APM, you're very competitive, you have a winning strategy, but it's really boring to watch like a million games of StarCraft 2. So that game is like competing against Usain Bolt. Okay, everyone can run, but no one can surpass him. It doesn't really have RNG factor, and it's mostly pretty mechanical. So yeah, it should be entertaining. Like spectator mode is really important, and if it's a team-based game, it's even more fun. If everyone has different roles, it's even more complex. So I think it's focused more on entertainment.
Okay, I have two questions coming up just from your answer. So.
I just want to say that, in my opinion, Blizzard reached the maximum that you can get for an esports title with StarCraft 2, and that's why it's boring right now. Because they focus so much on making the game so competitive and perfect and balanced that now it is basically a game of little details that casual people that used to watch it cannot do, and it's boring for them and it's frustrating maybe in some cases.
That's what I was going to ask, because I think actually, my opinion is that actually StarCraft 2 had a really significant role in the recent rise of esports. And I do remember that in the beginning it was, well, way
Core
more fun.
esports title,
more,
yeah.
So yeah, it's true that it's very interesting to see how it evolved or devolved from that point of view.
There were certain aspects in StarCraft 2 as well inside the game, because the development team that worked at the beginning of the game, they moved to Heroes of the Storm, and it happened, there were like a lot of internal transactions that were happening inside the company, and some of the people inside the community sort of felt left out, let's say, because they were feeling that there's nothing happening in StarCraft 2, and there's no big patches that they are going to fix some of the stuff that they thought that they were broken, for example. They thought they weren't listened to, let's say. I mean, at some point, maybe Blizzard focused on some other titles, and we saw that with Heroes of the Storm, we saw that with Overwatch recently, which had a very big increase in viewership and in player base as well.
I'm glad that you mentioned already a couple of times that the more successful esports today are team-based games. Do games where you have like one player versus one other player competing, do those kind of games stand a chance on the long term? I mean, we have Hearthstone as a rather successful example. We have StarCraft, which spawned the whole thing, which is again one player versus one player. But what we see today is team versus team. If I'm a developer and I'm trying to make a game that could become an esport, should I think about one player versus one player or team versus team? Or do I have a chance if I do it one player versus one player?
Well, Hearthstone's the clear exception, but Hearthstone isn't a new idea. I mean, card games have been popular, I don't know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Think about Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know, 12, 15 years ago, even Pokemon, the card game, was interesting. So that wasn't a new idea. It was just a winning strategy applied in the Warcraft universe.
Okay.
But the game is interesting, you have to admit, but not that it can never be as interesting as a 5 versus 5 game. And I think that I'm a Hearthstone player, semi-professional somewhat, and what I really like about that game is I can watch streams while I play. It's something I can't do in another game. If I play StarCraft or Heroes of the Storm or League of Legends, I can't watch a stream on my secondary monitor, but when I play Hearthstone, I can watch someone else playing while I play, which is a cool feature.
I mean, the developers, if you're thinking from the beginning that you want to create the next esports title, yeah, you should maybe be thinking of team-based games because you have the social part. You play with your friends. That's the most important part because you have fun with your friends. Playing together with your friends increases your chances to have a successful esports title. Okay, if you play a 1v1, I can give you an example. For example, StarCraft 2 can be played 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, 4 versus 4, and it's pretty fun, to be honest. I mean, I've played it in the past, but it's not competitive.
Yeah, it's not competitive.
I mean, I've been playing and I've reached masters in StarCraft 2, for example, in 2 versus 2, doing the same strategy all over again. And so at some point I was, okay, why am I playing this game? Why am I playing like this? I mean, I'm doing a push in 4 minutes that I just invented with a guy and we talked about it and stuff like that, but nothing comes out of it. I mean, it got repetitive and I gained nothing from it because I did the same strategy all over again, and that's why there are no competitions for StarCraft 2. Very big tournaments, let's say for 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, or 4 versus 4. That's why only 1 versus 1 worked. But in 1 versus 1, I mean, you're playing and you're competing, but the kind of the social aspect, the fun aspect, talking with your friends about new strategies and stuff like that, kind of disappears if you don't, let's say, make the tools inside the game so you can talk with other people about the strategies or make it more social within the platform. Let's put it like that. It's very difficult and it's a kind of a thin line to really achieve that, but it's very difficult. It's much more easier to do it like in a team-based game when you actually have your teammates with you inside the game. You can talk inside the game, then you can add each other on social media and then I don't know, build up some friendships from that game. It's much more easier than in 1 versus 1 games. That's why they're more popular and they have, let's say, a more bigger key to success.
Okay. Does anyone want to add something there?
One more thing. It's also a bit easier to grow your community around team-based because your fans then feel like they're part of the team. So when it's easier to feel that you belong with the team, that you're in a group, than to think the same thing about an individual. So I think this is why usually team-based sports and, of course, team-based esports are more popular and more watched.
It's just a matter of being more fun and more attractive to watch a team versus team match or esports title. So I'm just speaking about watching it. Mm-hmm. It's more fun to watch because you see there in a team versus team, you see more strategies, more plays, more stuff to do rather than watching a one-on-one match when you only have one character or one hero to follow. So okay. I think it is just more fun and more entertaining to watch it.
So there seems to be a consensus here. Let's move in a slightly different direction. What about mobile esports? So it's people talk about it since probably 1 year. It was expected that we have Vainglory, which has had some success. It has Hearthstone. You can argue that it's a mobile, but all the competitions tend to be played on PCs. We have Clash Royale now, which was actually prophesized as the first big mobile esport. Will it work? What do you think? What's your take on mobile esports?
Okay, you said again about Hearthstone. Hearthstone is a card game. It's not necessarily a computer game or a phone game. It's a card game. It's just a card game that's depicted on your phone or on your PC, but it's still a card game. So it's a successful card game. Don't think about it as an esport.
But there are tournaments for Hearthstone, very big tournaments. It attracts a large audience. If you're looking, I mean, at the last BlizzCon, there were a lot of people that watched the.
Yeah, and they made it a point about making it impossible for the game to ever be reproduced in physical form. So I think it's a little bit more than just a card game. It's a card game that has blended very well in the digital medium, and well, it's doing a lot of things right. But it's still, I would say, it's still an e-sport.
Just to answer, actually, your directly question is like, why is not mobile gaming still into the esports? In my opinion, is that it is because mainly of the game developers that are mainly focusing on some other aspects of the game, like monetization, like making the game be played by hundreds of millions of users. So I guess right now their focus is not esports, but rather than building their community and building the game so they can make a profit. So I don't think that there is a developer that think at a mobile game right now as being an esports title, as we have examples for PC or consoles. So I think there all these examples that you mentioned, like Vainglory or Clash Royale, which actually ESL did it, the event that supposed to be the esports, the first esports big mobile event. Actually, all of these, in my opinion, were tries. So they were like just trying to see how their community will receive such an event. So if we are thinking that, for example, Clash Royale has, I think, I don't know, a couple of millions of users, close to 100, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure. But from these, let's say, 100 million users worldwide, there were like, I think, 25,000 that watched the stream. So basically, they were just testing it. I think at one point there will be a game on a platform that is not necessarily like the mobile, but maybe a tablet or something that can be a true esports title. But although it will be very hard to make it so close to a real esports title as it is on PC right now, because it's also very hard to play, especially games that are requiring a lot of mechanics and a lot of physical movements.
I'm gonna touch a little bit about the technical aspects from the production company, from a production point of view, for example. It's very difficult to take from a small screen and to play with it, let's say, to put it on a big screen and to do a lot of features that will be attractive for the people that watch at home. Okay. So the device itself being on mobile makes it difficult for a production company to play with all the features that it can do on a PC title, for example, an esports title on PC. I'm just gonna give you an example. How can I do a picture from a game when the mobile is going to send me a very small feed, a small window feed? Okay, I can go through it, let's say, with different types of converters and stuff like that. But it's a very, very difficult job in that sense to do a lot of the production features that you would like to do from the if you're comparing it to an esports title that is played on the PC.
I would argue that those are probably things that can be fixed if the game really tries to address those.
It can have a spectator mode that can help a lot, for example, but that's still in the developer's hands.
Yeah,
let's put it like that.
It's in the developer's hands.
To invest into that as well. Sorry.
I think when I'm thinking at least about mobile gaming, I'm thinking about something that I'm doing in between things. So, I'm going somewhere, I'm playing a game or something like that. And there is a game actually out there who has taken the extra step of focusing, of forcing the player to focus on the game and really do whatever needs to be done in order to accomplish. Because it's also about the training, practice, and focus in esports. And this game is Pokemon Go. I mean, you don't think at Pokemon Go right now as an esport, but I think it takes us a little bit further towards the goal, as it makes you do some things over a probably longer period of time, focus on what you have to do, train, search, and do all these kinds of things that you usually do in an esport. So probably you haven't thought about Pokemon Go like this. It doesn't have a really competitive nature right now, but it could probably evolve, towards an esport or some form of it, in the future.
I like that idea.
I didn't tell you before.
It's I like it, but yeah, it's again something for the developers. And they have to discover the formula to figure that out.
I think maybe you want to actually mention more that augmented reality, basically, right, is not itself Pokemon Go being an esports title, but maybe the features that Pokemon Go uses can be at one point.
Yes, of course. Of course, but we now have this in this title.
Yeah, there is no other example right now, probably, better than Pokemon Go.
Okay, so we're getting close to the end. So before taking questions from the audience, final question for you: Romania does have an esport market, I would say. We have several big events taking place in Romania, which you guys are actually organizing. So how will this scale? How will esports grow in Romania? What do you need for that to scale?
I think most importantly at the beginning it needs to be recognized as a sport or as something. So we can start with that. I mean, we've been doing some efforts in that sort of sense, let's say, but we got refused actually this year that esports can be considered a sport, an actual sport. If chess can be considered a second-class sport, why not esports being enjoyed by millions of people all around the world? So I think that's a beginning, in my eyes at least, because it will, let's say, it will help the teams, Romanian teams, to actually invest in teams in Romania, in players, in teams, and will make the market grow. There are Romanian players that are famous right now, and they earn a lot of money, but they earn it through organizations that are based abroad, not in Romania. So they made a name for themselves, but in other places, let's put it like that. So I think a first step forward will be in that sense, making esports look legit to the right people up there that make the decisions.
Yeah.
I think before doing that, which is actually a good initiative, and it's normal nowadays, we are in 2016, and there are countries smaller than Romania that already adopted this kind of agreements with the government. But what I will add right now, as an organizer, I know that I have some problems when I'm coming to make an event. So the main problem is the mentality, and I'm not speaking about the mentality of the gamers, I'm speaking about the mentality and let's say the guts of the people that are in the companies that can decide budgets. And right now, those companies, the big names in the industry, independent of being part of the gaming industry, they are not looking at esports as being a marketing tool, as I mentioned before, and they don't see the potential right now, and they don't see they don't want to risk investing in it at the moment, and that's a main problem for us as organizers, and that's why sometimes we are working with, and I think is the case for PGL as well, we are working with the companies abroad, convince them to invest in Romania, which is some kind of a pity and a shame for us, but this is how it works right now. So We are basically having this major problem when it comes to found events and to found organizations, and I think Alex can tell us more about how it is to own a team. So basically, at this moment, I think we just need to obviously be proactive and still organizing stuff, but also we need to find the right moment when the companies in Romania will truly understand the potential of esports and gaming in general. That's my main issue right now.
Okay.
I see esports in Romania as an emerging market, so it's not mature. It's not even on its way to being completely mature. I think we have a lot to learn still, and in terms of communities, as well as the players, as well as the sponsors and the people actually active in this industry that approve budgets and so on, it's still a risky market. And from my point of view and my experience so far, we're working towards growing something. We're not in a mature market when we can actually focus on delivering high quality events or anything. We're still trying to figure it out as we go. So that's how the market is right now.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes?
Okay. You guys said just right now that the market is how it is in Romania. Do you think that's because we have mostly free-to-play games or very cheap games in tournaments? Like we don't have any tournaments for AAA titles. Call of Duty, for example. Okay.
Well, first of all, for a game to have like a big community, it doesn't have to have any crazy requirements, because let's face it, we're not such a rich country. Most people that play video games can't really afford like really expensive computers that can run AAA games. So think about it this way. I mean,
I think there is not the problem of the game being AAA or not, or you gave the example of Call of Duty. I think right now Call of Duty is just in a way when it's becoming an esports title. So we can basically say that, yeah, I need to have that game in my event because it will attract a lot of people. I think that's the problem with this kind of games right now. When the free-to-play games that you mentioned are like games that are really developed into esports and can really attract people at events, only because they are entertaining to watch, and only because they are like working daily to make it better. I think that's why we don't have Call of Duty in more events than usual.
Vlad, you want to take this one?
Yeah. Let me tell you something really interesting about Call of Duty, at least in Romania. We've had the booth at East European Comic Con for 2 years in a row. This year was the second year. But last year, we had our booth divided with Destiny, Call of Duty, Hearthstone, and Heroes of the Storm. So, of course, it was full. East European Comic Con, you've probably been there. It's always full. But there were always people at our booth. There were always people in line to play Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Of course, there was some interest for Heroes of the Storm, which was just about to be launched. It was launched on 1st of June, and the Comic-Con was a bit before. But most people in line were there to play Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. And, we thought we knew what our sales data was, and when I thought, okay, so there's quite a lot of interest in Call of Duty. We only had 10 PCs for Call of Duty. So that year, when we were presented by Activision the chance to buy from them old Call of Duty titles for really low prices, we basically imported tens of thousands of copies on all platforms, all Call of Duty titles. And they sell like crazy. So it doesn't matter if it's on PC, on PS3, on Xbox. People want to buy it. So what I knew basically that Romania is a very price-sensitive country. Our purchasing power is lower than what you have in the West. So price is, of course, something which is really important for Romanians. If you want to sell something in Romania, you have to price it accordingly. Of course, this is not possible all the time for various reasons. With new titles, mainly because we are in the European Union. But for older titles, you can go as low as €4, €5, up to €10, and it's a hit. You sell tens of thousands of copies at this price. At least I'm talking about retail, of course. I don't know anything about digital, because I'm not in the digital business. I'm in the retail business. So I think there's a lot of interest for the games and for gaming, but some people or most people don't afford it. They don't have the hardware to run the games, and if you can give them something that they can afford, something that they can play on the hardware they have, then of course they're interested and they're going to buy it. So, for example, I'll give an example. Call of Duty Ghosts. When it launched, it wasn't a really, critically acclaimed title. But right now, when it's priced at around €10 or even lower on PC, it flies off the shelves. So people are buying it. They want to play it. So it all depends on how you look at a certain problem and how you tweak your business.
Okay, thank you. We're out of... Okay, one last question. Sorry, he was first. So let's take one quick question.
Hello. I noticed there was no mention of fighting games, like when there was this talk about team-based game and 1v1 games. I'm no esports specialist, but I'm wondering what's the state of this scene? Is it something that is really popular, I don't know, in US, in Japan, for example, not really in Europe? I'd like to know a bit more about this, please.
The communities, they exist in Romania, but they're pretty small. For example, at my location, we've had some Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat tournaments, but you can't really compare the presence to other games like League of Legends or Hearthstone or Counter-Strike or FIFA. The communities exist, but they're small.
As far as I know, a few weeks ago, Capcom had a World Championship or something, if I'm not mistaken, which was done in a sports hall with a couple of thousands of people there and thousands of them watching it. So they are there, but from my understanding and from my knowledge, it's a matter of speaking and convincing the developer to do it. That's the problem right now. But as you mentioned, there are not that many, only because the developers right now don't want to focus on esports, but they will do because they need to. Otherwise, they won't stay on the line with the others. So it's just a matter of developer that wants to be there and to put the money into an esports event and develop the game in such a way to make it esports, like bugs free and balanced.
Okay. So thanks a lot for being here. Thank you.